If you've seen NCAP's other video, Why Care About Pesticides, then you know there are many good reasons to avoid using conventional pesticides in your home and garden. But what are the alternatives? This video demonstrates some practical strategies for managing urban and suburban landscaped areas without using conventional pesticides. If you're beginning a landscaping project, one of the most helpful things you can do is design your space so that it will require less maintenance, and so that it will be less conducive to pest problems. This means being smart about what plants you choose to include, and making sure that your selections are well suited to grow in your particular area. This concept is often referred to as right plant, right place. One example of how this concept might be implemented is in choosing the right grass cultivar for turf areas. A poorly chosen grass will require more irrigation and care and will be more susceptible to pest issues than a well-adapted cultivar. In the Northwest, where the climate offers limited sunlight and lots of moisture, fine fescues tend to perform well because they prefer these environmental conditions. Using a fine fescue, or whatever grass is well suited for your typical environmental conditions, will help you create turf areas where the grass can outcompete the weeds. Another way to prevent weeds in turf is to apply corn gluten meal. Corn gluten meal is a byproduct of corn that is milled for production into food and animal feed. It acts as a natural pre-emergent herbicide by causing a root deformation as seeds begin to germinate. This makes any new plant growth, including weeds, susceptible to rapid dehydration and failure. Common weeds, like crabgrass, creeping bentgrass, smartweed, and dandelions, are all preventable by using corn gluten meal. It won't affect the roots of established plants, so you can't use it to control weeds that are already growing. However, this makes it a great option for preventing weeds in turf. As a bonus, corn gluten meal is naturally high in nitrogen, so it provides some fertilization where it's applied. There is debate over the effectiveness of corn gluten meal, since there are field trials in which it's demonstrated good weed prevention and field trials in which it has failed to prevent weeds. Timing and application rate seem to be the key factors in determining how well corn gluten meal works. The recommended application rate is anywhere from 12 to 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet. It's also suggested that you apply twice a year, once during spring around March 15th, and again at the end of summer around August 15th. The only health risk associated with corn gluten meal is the potential for reaction among those who may be allergic to corn. But as with any substance, it's good not to overuse it, and to take care especially to minimize runoff. Due to the high nitrogen content, corn gluten meal can contribute to algal blooms and other kinds of underwater vegetation. If you're working with an already established landscape, then you likely have some management needs that go beyond prevention. Here are some ways to tackle those. One popular method for getting rid of undesired vegetation is flame weeding. Humans have used fire as a tool for thousands of years, and modern technology allows us to continue this tradition in a way that is easy, safe, and effective. Flame weeders come in many shapes and sizes, from small handheld torches that are good for home and garden use, to larger tractor-mounted appliances that can be used in agricultural operations or along roadsides. They work simply by subjecting a plant briefly to intense heat. This essentially cooks the plant, causing it to lose moisture and wither. All it takes is a brief pass, just a few seconds at a height of 3 to 6 inches above the plant. You don't need to burn the plant, only sear it. You'll know you've damaged the plant sufficiently if it sags visibly after the treatment, or if you can leave a thumbprint on the plant by pressing it gently. Flame weeding is more effective on broadleaf weeds than grasses and is most effective when applied to younger, less established plants. Multiple flame treatments may be required for hardier, older plants. Flame weeders can likely be found at your local garden supply store, and they're also available online, so they are easy to acquire and use. Just be sure to observe the appropriate safety precautions. For excellent safety tips, see the three-part article on Sustainable Places Information Network entitled Flame Weeding, a Hot Topic for Park Managers. In terms of sustainability, flame weeding is preferable to using herbicides because it doesn't have a toxic impact on the environment. However, most flame equipment does utilize fossil fuels, such as propane, so it isn't completely without its drawbacks. There are some tools now that utilize water and steam instead of propane and flames, and these are perhaps the most environmentally friendly option if you can find them and if you can afford them. If you have a large area to work with and a lot of vegetation, a better strategy might be sheet mulching. Sheet mulching is a simple process that not only controls weeds, but also builds and improves the quality of your soil over time by allowing more retention of nutrients and moisture, and by encouraging favorable activity by microbes and worms. While it does require some labor, sheet mulching is simple and can be accomplished fairly cheaply. First, knock down the vegetation in the area you wish to cover with sheet mulching. You can do this by hand or with a mower, but be sure to leave the vegetation rather than removing it. This way, it composts underneath the mulch. If your time and your budget allow, apply a layer of nitrogen-rich material such as compost, manure, or worm castings, and then water the area. Next, cover the area with a layer of biodegradable fiber. Cardboard or newspaper are typically favored choices because they can be easily overlapped at edges to create a seamless cover. Once again, if you have the time and the budget to do so, add another layer of compost. This can be unfinished compost, manure, or other plant materials that are actively decomposing. This will encourage microbial activity underneath the mulch. Leaves or grass clippings can also be mixed in. Finally, finish with a layer of mulch. Wood chips, sawdust, or straw all work very well. This can be applied up to 5 inches. New plants can be reintroduced to the mulched area simply by digging out holes and spot planting where desired. The finished mulch area will provide good ground cover and weed suppression for at least several months. A similar tactic for larger areas is solarization, a process that utilizes the sun to sterilize a patch of ground, ridding it of soil-borne bacterial and fungal pathogens and destroying the viability of any weed seeds that might be hiding in the soil. Solarization also sterilizes beneficial organisms in your soil, although some of these, mycorrhizal fungi for example, have been shown to bounce back quickly. This can also be compensated for by inoculating your soil with compost or other nutrients following a solarization treatment. To properly solarize, you need to achieve soil temperatures at or above 110 degrees in the top 6 inches of soil, and maintain these temperatures for a period of 4 to 6 weeks. Therefore, it's best to attempt solarization during the summer months, when sunlight and heat are the most consistent and reliable. The first step is to till the area so that you stir up as many weed seeds as possible. It also helps to remove any bulky or sharp objects that might damage the plastic covering. Then water the area well. Next, cover the area with a clear sheet of plastic at least half a millimeter thick. Polyethylene film can often be obtained from farm and garden supply stores. If you can find plastic that is designed to withstand exposure to UV radiation, this is preferable as it will be less likely to degrade. Bury the edges of the plastic with soil or weigh them down with stones or other heavy objects. This prevents wind from disturbing the plastic and it prevents heat from escaping from the soil underneath. Then leave the plastic in place for 4 to 6 weeks and keep it clean of debris, water, or other objects that might obscure sunlight from passing through. At the end of this period, you should be left with a sterile patch of ground, essentially a blank page to which you can add amendments and other plants as desired. Among the many lawn and garden products, there are now organic options for weed and pest control. Organic pesticides are still pesticides. However, many of them are derived from the least toxic ingredients, such as vinegar, botanical oils, or even microbial organisms, and for the most part, these are far more environmentally friendly than synthetic chemical pesticides. NCAP doesn't recommend the use of pesticides, but we acknowledge that many people will at some point feel compelled to use them. If it's a choice between using a conventional chemical product or an organic product, the best option is to choose organic. When looking at a product label, you can tell whether it's organic or not by looking for the OMRI logo. OMRI, O-M-R-I, is the Organic Materials Review Institute, which evaluates products against the health and environmental standards set by the National Organic Program. Looking for this certification is important because there are many products marketed with the words natural, environmentally friendly, or even organic, but which contain synthetic chemical insecticides or herbicides, and which do not meet the organic environmental standards. The OMRI certification lets you know that the product you're considering has been reviewed. As mentioned, many organic herbicides utilize acetic acid as their primary active ingredient. This is essentially vinegar. These products work on contact, as their natural acidity strips the plant membrane of its waxy cuticle. This makes the plant susceptible to dehydration. Acetic acid does not usually kill the root of the plant directly, but repeated applications to the above-ground vegetation can stress the root and eventually cause it to die. Vinegar products tend to work better on broadleaf weeds than grasses, though they can be used to control both. It's best to apply vinegar on dry, warm, sunny days. The results can be quick, taking less than 24 hours to become apparent. Other organic products can contain various combinations of botanical extracts as their active ingredients. These too tend to rely largely on natural acidity rather than a toxic mode of action. However, there are exceptions. Some common active ingredients are clove oil, citrus oil, limonene or citronella, neem oil, and rosemary oil. As going green has become more popular, and as more people have become aware of the risks associated with conventional pesticides, organic alternatives have become more widely available and more affordable than they ever have been before. If you feel that you must use pesticides to complete your land management project, then check your local home and garden store for organic products with the OMRI certification. For more information on alternatives to pesticides, both for indoor and outdoor projects, see NCAP's fact sheets at pesticide.org, as well as our articles and videos at sustainableplaces.org.